Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. While you were applauding, Tina Fey won another Emmy. Crazy, isn't it? You folks see the annual Emmy Awards last night? Hosts included Jeff Probst was one of the hosts, Tom Bergeron, one of the hosts, Ryan Seacrest was one of the hosts. It was a comedy's answer to Lehman Brothers.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, here's what I like. Whenever there's something special like that, people get excited. Like everybody was excited about the Emmys, and you would think to yourself, well, maybe, yes, they were excited. For example, during the Emmys, John McCain, senator from Arizona, candidate for president, John McCain during the Emmys said, Gunsmoke win anything? And so he was excited. But here's another surprise. At the Emmy Awards, there are a lot of souvenir hunters. And as a matter of fact, an overzealous fan actually tried to chip a piece off Betty White.
Oh.
And I mean, haven't we all, really? Big news from the world of sports, ladies and gentlemen. Last night, you know about this, was the last game played at the old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Yep. The stadium will be imploded. And by the way, the team imploded around April. Now they're gone. Yeah, the Yankees are building a new stadium. Hey, how about building a new team? You know what I'm saying? But how about this for history? Babe Ruth's daughter, 92 years old, Babe Ruth's daughter, 92 years old, threw out the first pitch. Yep, and she also pitched the last 2 innings for the Yankees. Cut her. Hey, how about this, ladies and gentlemen? Autumn arrived on schedule today. Well, at least there's one thing that Bush hasn't screwed up. How about this economy? The economy is in big trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Regis Philbin is down to his last billion. He was out in front of his place Friday raking his money. But the Bush administration is now running the economy. So finally, some good news there. Let's go. Oh, you know what it is? It's United Nations General Assembly is in session. And it's kind of exciting because I was walking by the UN today, and out front, all the dictators were out there having a smoke.
How you doing? Hey, nice to see you. How's it going? Yeah. How you doing? Hey.
By the way, John McCain is introducing his running mate, Sarah Palin, to the world leaders over at the UN. And it was nice. It looked like Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. What? That's what it looked like. By the way, as the campaign goes on, we're learning more and more about Senator John McCain, and apparently he has 13 cars. Yep, 13 cars, and he can't remember where he parked any of them. Now, here's a guy. You know about this guy, David Blaine, the street magician? Do you know about this guy? Every couple of years, he does wild and peculiar things here in New York City. And in a couple of weeks, he's going to be hanging upside down in Central Park. You understand what I'm saying? Hanging upside down in Central Park of his own choosing. Going to be hanging there for 60 hours. 60 hours, yes, hanging upside down in Central Park. And New Yorkers already very excited about this. A crowd is forming now to gather his pocket change. Right now, they're... But yeah, it's going to be tough. David Blaine hanging upside down. Think about this, for 60 hours. That's a long time hanging upside down. No food, gets no food when he's hanging upside down. No sleep when he's hanging upside down. or as Dick Cheney calls it, routine questioning.
Whoops.
That's what he calls it. But, all right, hey. Right now it's time for a little something we call Great Moments in Presidential Speeches. Take a look and hear it.
There are some who say that communism is the wave of the future. Let them come to Berlin.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Are you having burritos for lunch?
Are you having burritos? Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to my good friend Paul Schaefer.
Thank you, Dave, but I want everybody to stay right in your seats. And put your arms together, your hands together, and give me some of that old soul clapping.
Yes, sir. We'll be right back with President Bill Clinton, everybody.
Coming up next, President Bill Clinton. After the break, Dave explains how you can cut 15% from your heating costs.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Paul Schaefer and the great Paul Schaefer Symphony Orchestra, Broadway Melody Makers. Thank you so very much. Welcome to the program. It was a big moment at my house on Saturday because I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you know about this. I don't know if you care about this. But last spring, earlier this year, before the summer, it was T-ball time. T-ball time.
I remember that.
And if you have a 4 or a 5-year-old kid, it's, talk about T-ball mania.
Whoa.
And as I've said before, if you've never seen a T-ball game, let me explain it to you this way. One inning of T-ball is the most exciting 4 hours in all of sports. It's just
1 inning.
Well, no, you're gonna. All 40 kids get to bat. So now I guess you know what it is. Soccer.
Ah.
Yeah, soccer. So, and I don't pretend to be the perfect father. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing here. But you make some mistakes when you take things for granted. So when we had the conversation, Harry, would you like to play soccer? Oh, yeah, I'd like to play. Great, he's on board. We're going to play soccer. We get him signed up. He's on the Wizards, by the way, if you're checking your box scores. On the Wizards. And the nice thing about the soccer versus the T-ball, it's not 1,000 kids on a team with soccer. It's, like 4 or 5 kids, and then they play, and then it's great fun. So you got to put on the cleats, you got to put on the shin guards, you got to put on the thing, and he's ready to go. So now it's like 45 minutes of just a clot of kids, like a scrum. It's like bees following the queen. Just all it takes is one kid who sort of knows what he's doing, and the rest of them cluster around the kid and follow him. And so this is pretty good, and I'm thinking, well, it seems to be going great. And now, after what seemed like an eternity, we hear this. All right, halftime. What?
Wow.
What? Halftime? What? So we have our snacks, and then we get back in the game. And they told us, by the way, they don't keep score in soccer. They don't. For some reason, they're not keeping score. So okay, second half. And now there's kind of like a breakaway. The ball gets loose, and here's where you realize you gotta pay attention to everything when you're a parent. The ball breaks loose, and I'm screaming, "All right, Harry, go!" And here comes Harry. So he's going after the ball. This has happened to everybody on the planet. So he breaks away from the clot, and he runs up to the ball. Yeah! 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 And now, I'm standing there trying to be a supportive parent, and everybody is looking at me, mothers, fathers, and I can read their minds. They're all saying, "Dumbass." What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yeah, and I think there's only like 30 more games. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Our first guest served 2 terms as the 42nd President of the United States. His Clinton Global Initiative organization holds its annual meeting here in New York City this week. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Bill Clinton. Thank you very much for coming back to the program. And I want to find out about the economy in a couple of minutes. I want to.
So do I.
Yeah. I want to find out what went wrong, and I want to know whose fault it is. And am I going to have to cut back on stuff? That's what I want to know. But first, let's talk about the Clinton Global Initiative. Tell me about it, how it works, and some successes you've had with the program.
Every year when the UN opens, I have a meeting in which we invite leaders of charitable groups all around the world to come, called non-governmental groups, and meet with philanthropists like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and meet with governmental leaders and people who do this kind of work in America. We talk about how to reduce poverty, how to improve healthcare, how to improve education, how to fight global warming in a way that's good for the economy. And everybody makes a commitment. Then we go out for a year and monitor them, and we come back the next year and see how we're doing. So this is our 4th year. We've had 1,000 commitments in 150 countries that have helped 200 million people to have clean water, to have better medicine, to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria, to go to school with good learning materials, to grow the economy by getting loans. And increasingly, more and more, we're proving you can create jobs by investing in clean energy.
Mm-hmm. And are there things that individuals can do, or do you have to be huge donors to do this?
No. You don't even have to come there. You can follow this over the internet. We webcast it, and then you can go to our website called mycommitment.org. You can get through there a list of more than 100,000 opportunities to be active in America and around the world and make a commitment. So a lot of people do that. They follow it over the internet. They make commitments over the internet. They can commit $5, $10, 2 hours a week, whatever, time, money, skills. This is something that we're trying to get everybody to do.
And in your experience so far, and I think I know the answer to this, is this more efficient and easier to do this the way you're doing it than it is with a government? Do you have better results this way than a government might do?
Yes and no. That is, there are some things that we can do better, quicker, and almost always more cheaply, just because we don't have rules and regulations that we have to follow. On the other hand, I know you're interested in global warming. I am. We can do a lot with no government involvement, but we'll never be where we ought to be until the U.S. government passes legislation that commits us to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, puts a price on carbon, makes solar and wind power much more attractive for a longer period of time. So sometimes we need the government and sometimes no. Sometimes you could just work in partnership. I work with the Bush administration's AIDS program all over Africa, for example. We just figure out who should do what when, and we do it.
Mm-hmm. Because it's my understanding, and maybe this is not right, but my understanding, there's enough money, enough resources in the world to handle most problems.
That's absolutely true. For example, well, look at America. We spend 16% of our income on health care. None of our competitors in Europe and Japan spend more than 11. We leave 16% of our people without insurance. They cover everybody. So we don't have to spend any more money on health care. We have to reallocate what we're spending if we want to get the best results. The same thing is true in energy and in any number of other areas.
Well, congratulations on the program, by the way. It sounds tremendous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, And this is true for many, many things. I know nothing about the economy. I know nothing about the global economy. But I do know a little bit about history. And now people are saying, economists and experts are saying, the American economy is in the worst condition it's been since the 30s. Well, that to me conjures images of bread lines, the Dust Bowl, people out of work, people living in tents, people camping out, people not having a nickel to rub together. Is that true when they say that, as bad as it's been since the 30s?
I think that's a little overstatement today, but what they're saying is that the financial system is as fragile as it's been since the 30s, and we know it collapsed, and therefore they're worried about it collapsing again. Here's essentially what happened. When the bubble in high-tech stocks burst, 2001 or so, there was a lot of money in the economy at low interest rates because the Federal Reserve was trying to keep economic activity going. The only problem is the only activity was in housing and real estate. That was 40, 50% of our growth the first 5 years. So all the money went in there. Then in order to get more and more money into it and more people into it, they developed, the finance people did, these derivatives, these interesting instruments where you could cover more and more loans at smaller and smaller reserves. So the leverage, that is, you had 30 times as many loans as you had money to back it up.
Subprime is what we're talking about?
No, that's different. This is the so-called derivatives, where you could have an instrument which would in effect represent, let's say, 30 houses, but you only had enough money to cover one. That's leverage. Now, the subprime's different. The subprime system was a way of getting more people to borrow money to buy homes who wouldn't be able to get a mortgage under traditional circumstances. So we'd say to people, look, we'll loan you money for just the interest on the mortgage for 3 years, but you'll have to pay a higher interest rate, and then after 3 years we'll renegotiate it, and you'll have to pay your mortgage off like everybody else. So for 3 years, John Doe pays his mortgage at, I'm making this up, $800 a month. And all of a sudden in year 4, he's told, well, you signed this mortgage and it's now $1,400 a month. And he said, but I haven't gotten a raise. And gasoline is more, utilities are more, food's more, health care is more. I can't make this mortgage payment. So you go around and foreclose on people. All these things are happening together. That's what Secretary Paulson and Chairman Bernanke are trying to do by stopping the hemorrhaging. But it's not enough to bail out Wall Street. You also got to help Main Street, and we've got to have a source of new good investment for new jobs again.
Now you can tell by looking at me that
You didn't understand it?
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I didn't do a good job?
No, you did a fine job. My head starts to hurt. Now were these measures you described, they were well-intended in the 2002?
No, I don't know. I think it was well-intended to put more money out there by the Federal Reserve because they didn't want a recession to occur, because we have an inevitable downturn in the high technology stocks in 2001, 2002. But what happened is you put a whole lot more money in the economy, it needs somewhere to go, right?
Yes.
And if you were working on Wall Street, let's say, and your income depends on how many deals you do, and you get paid by a percent of how many deals you do, if all the deals to be done are in real estate, you keep trying to figure out how to get people to buy more houses, buy more commercial buildings, and you then do something called leveraging. That is, you try to make sure that the money you've got will buy more and more and more by just having to keep smaller and smaller and smaller margins. Everything's great until it goes down, and then hits the fan, which is what has happened.
that I understand. That part I got.
Everything, it's sort of like basic physics. What goes up will come down, and what happened is a lot of these investment houses were overly tied to these fragile investments, and we should have had tougher regulation with more reserves required, more guarantees to stop something from collapsing this much. Didn't happen. And we also didn't have a lot of other investment opportunities for them. They should have, if they'd been able to invest in like a clean energy future, this never would have happened.
Yeah, why didn't that come up, for heaven's sakes?
Because we weren't giving the right kind of incentives in the beginning of the decade. That is, that in fairness to a lot of the people who made these decisions, let's say to take your money, and say, look, Dave, you gave me your money, I work at Goldman Sachs, I want you to earn good money on this money you gave me. If there had been a real economic policy that was not concentrated on just making rich people richer by cutting their taxes and putting more money into real estate, you could have made money by investing in solar power. Let's suppose we were given a 10-year credit for people who wanted to make solar and wind and energy conservation the order of the day. Then your investment would have been creating jobs in the real economy. People would have been able to afford old-fashioned home mortgages. You would have eventually gotten your money back, and we wouldn't have had this collapse. There was an underlying problem that there weren't enough good opportunities and there were too many bad incentives. Mm-hmm. And look, nobody's totally blameless here. I mean, this Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac thing, they were at fault too, and they were a quasi-government agency. They've now been taken over. I think we're getting this thing straightened out financially, but the point is we're still going to have real problems unless we do what Hillary and others have said, which is to have a moratorium on these home mortgage foreclosures and work these things out so these good, hard-working people who can make a mortgage payment get a chance to make a payment they can make. Otherwise, you're going to have 2 million people foreclose on this year, 2 million next year, and if you want to know what it does to the economy, multiply every home by $225,000. That's the cost of the economy when you foreclose.
Well, this sounds pretty scary.
But it doesn't have to be. We can turn it around.
Okay, all right. We'll be right back with President Bill Clinton.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel. Sailing narrow highway.
Okay.
And that's why you have to have regulations.
All right, so now, over the weekend, everybody's buzzing about the $700 billion bailout. We've seen things going under. We've seen things fail, financial institutions, banks, on and on. $700 billion, and they're now negotiating the terms of that. Will that take care of things or not?
The honest truth is no one knows. But it should if it's done right. The point I want to make is I don't think the American taxpayers are doing this just to save Wall Street and big banks. And they should understand that they should want them saved because over half the American people have a direct or an indirect stake in the stock market. And if you want the economy to grow over the long run, people have to be able to go someplace and get a loan to start a business and expand it. But Hillary has said for over a year now we ought to have a moratorium on these home mortgage foreclosures, and we need a government agency that does what they did in the Depression, which is figure out how to rewrite the terms of the mortgages so people can pay it. And then as they pay off their mortgage, they can kick some of that money back to the government. The taxpayers actually made money from an agency Franklin Roosevelt set up called the Homeowners Loan Corporation or something like that, HOLC, because they stopped all these people from being thrown in the street. That's what we ought to do now. We ought to stop the bleeding and
what are the
another
chances
economy.
of something like that happening?
I think they're pretty high if the Congress will say, first of all, this is not a criticism of Hank Paulson, the Treasury Secretary, and Mr. Bernanke. I think they've done a good job in an emergency. They woke up one day and there was an earthquake, and they didn't have time when they were trying to keep us from all falling in the cracks to think of every contingency. But the Congress now should say, okay, we'll help you with the earthquake, but you got to make sure that this helps ordinary people as well as Wall Street. And in the end, Wall Street should want that. That is, we are never going to fix this economy unless we slow down these home mortgage foreclosures and then start giving people something good to invest in for the future.
When you take a look at where we are now, and we'll have new administration in 5-6 weeks, and do you ask yourself, or does it ever occur to you, who in God's name would really want the job now? I mean, it's not like everything was fine until a week ago, but you know what I mean?
Well, in traditional game theory, everybody should want it now because they'll figure it can't get any worse. It's going to get better. You buy low, sell high. But actually, I think it is these are tremendously complicated, serious problems. But I think it would be a great honor to be president now because the American people deserve a stable financial system and they deserve a turnaround. And while I know you're all scared, everybody looking at us, it's a mistake to bet against America. Everybody that's bet against America for the last 200 years has lost money. We have finally figured out what to do. as Mr. Churchill once said, we always do the right thing after discarding every other alternative. We try everything else first. And, but we've come to the end of those alternatives. We're going to have to do the right thing here. But we can turn this around, and I would think that I rather not envy. I love being president, wouldn't want to do it again, but I do think John McCain or Barack Obama should be looking at this with great relish. This is an enormous opportunity to be able to help your country get through a problem like this. It's a great thing.
I think you're right about that. That's the only attitude to have. But then, you know, just when everybody is now thinking, what the hell is going to happen in Iraq? What the hell is going to happen in Afghanistan? Is there a connection to the economy? And then the economy goes belly up. I mean, my goodness.
But look, let me just remind you that what is going belly up is a heavily leveraged financial system, right? And we have to clean up the problems in regulation. We have to not let the American people and their interest in having a rewrite of this whole mortgage mess go to waste. We got to do that. And then we need investment opportunities that create jobs in a real economy so that you don't always try to make money out of money. That's what leads to all this pyramiding, all these derivatives, you know. How else are you going to make money? We want people to make money the old-fashioned way. Loan money to David Letterman to start his own solar energy company.
Now you're talking. Let's go. Yeah.
Turn on the lights.
We'll be right back with President Clinton.
I've been trying to get to you for a long time. You that expressway, that's the best way. At 5 o'clock.
Thank you very much. This is issues notwithstanding. This election, this campaign has taken some interesting twists, hasn't it?
You bet.
Barack Obama and Joe Biden, who, by the way, I don't know if he was quoted out of context, but referred to our senator here in New York, your wife, you've met her, as maybe potentially a better choice for vice president than he was. How did that come about? What was he talking about?
Well, I don't know, but you know, Hillary and Joe Biden and we're friends. Joe Biden was a great supporter of mine when I was president in stopping the genocide in Bosnia and Kosovo, restoring democracy in Haiti, and a whole lot of other things that we did together. He is a very fine man and a great public servant, and they just like each other, and he knows that. You know, Hillary ran, got 18 million votes, and I think he was telling what he honestly believed. That basically, he thought she'd be great. He was selected. Let's make the best of this and win this election. That's what I think he was saying. I don't think that you should. He's a brutally frank guy, but I don't think he meant it in any kind of cute way.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. People like me and everybody else tries to find something silly and cute there.
I think, no. Look, I just think that you got to understand, he and Hillary are friends. They like and respect each other. And when he was named, we were together, and she looked at me and she said, this is good. Yeah. You know, we like Biden. We have lots of confidence in him.
You know what I like about this guy, and it's something I guess I knew but didn't know to the point where it sank in. He was on the show a couple of years ago, and his story, and it's well documented, and talk about being down and being knocked down and kicked down. This guy couldn't get down any farther. And I said to him, what do you do? And he said, I just remember something that I think his father had told him. He said, just get up.
Yep.
And boy, you know, those are great words. But if you can do that, well, that's
he lost
superhuman.
His first wife and child at 20, when he was 29 years old. He'd just was being elected to the Senate, youngest person elected to the Senate in, 50 years. And he had to start again. Then he had the aneurysm. He had to start again. He had, 20 years ago, ran for president, and I think got pretty much of a raw deal. He had to start again. And he just kept serving and serving with dignity and doing good things. And I think he's great.
And has not accumulated a vast fortune for his efforts in public service.
And he goes home every night. I mean, to Delaware. He gets on a train and goes back to Delaware every night. He is you know, it's interesting. He and Hillary have a lot of time. He was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Her family, the Rodham family, are all from Scranton. We're going up there to christen our newest nephew in about, I don't know, 3 weeks or so. And then Joe's going to come up and meet us, and we're all going to do a campaign event for Senator Obama in Northeast Pennsylvania. It's going to be fun. We'll have a good time.
Do you think if John McCain is elected, Sarah Palin will go back to Alaska every night?
It's a long way.
Now,
Unless she's got a time machine, that'll be tough.
as a man who has served and understands politics better than anybody else, you must have been fascinated by that choice.
I was. I think, first of all, you got to understand, McCain, one of the things that I like about him, and I think Americans like about him, is that he is an intuitive politician. And I think he instinctively thought that she would help him, number one, excite the people who were potentially his voters, and number two, demonstrate that he could be a change candidate. See, his big cross to bear in this election is that this is not a very good year to be a Republican. I mean, no, really. I mean, two-thirds of the American people are having trouble paying their bills. They're genuinely worried. They're having trouble with their health care, their mortgages, or, their utilities can't fill up the gas tanks or even buy food, and like lots of other things. I went to 300 towns for Hillary in the last 3 months of this election. 300. I've never seen anything like it. It's significantly worse for average people than it was in 1992 when I was elected on the economy. So he needed to somehow get people's attention, and I think he thought this would do it. And it certainly has been interesting. It's been interesting because it generated more enthusiasm on the part of Republicans, and physics being active in politics, There was an opposite reaction.
That's right.
Generated more giving to Senator Obama among the Democrats. The enthusiasm gap closed, and the only kind of potentially negative thing is, when you get a lot of emotion in a campaign, it tends to generate more heat than light, and right now we all need to be thinking here. We're in a fix, but we can get out of it, but we need to be thinking about this election. Who is best for our future? Who is best for our children's future? Who can turn the economy around? Who can do the right thing on the energy thing? Who can do the right thing on these complex national security issues? But I think it's a fascinating election. And
the current polls, I guess the difference is about 3 points in favor of the Democrats, which statistically evaporates somehow. Is the election going to be that close?
I would be a little surprised. I think that it'll be a little wider than that. But keep in mind, you don't have an incumbent president, and it's the first time in a good while where you don't have an incumbent vice president running, was the nominee of one of the two parties. And both Senator Obama and Senator McCain have different psychological sort of claims, if you will, on the imagination of the electorate, as well as what they say, here's who I am, here's what I'm for, is my position on these issues. And I think it's keeping the thing a little tight and interesting. I think could break open a little after the debates, but I'd be surprised. I think they'll both acquit themselves well. I think in the end, the election will break Obama's way, and you can discount that since I'm for him, but I think that the reason I think that is that I think he'll show himself to be intelligent, well-motivated, on your side, and able to do the job in the debates. And as I said, you got 2/3 of the people in trouble, aggravated by this recent financial problem. And the country is becoming more diverse racially, religiously, culturally. And you've got more new registration among Democrats and Republicans. So what I think will happen is we'll get along toward the end of this race. The country will wind up liking both of them. A lot of people go into that polling place and say, I really admire Senator McCain. He gave about all you could give to this country without getting killed for it.
Yeah.
But I got to have a change, and I think I'm going the other way. That's what I think will happen, and that's what I believe will happen.
Well, always a pleasure to have you here. Continued success with the Global Clinton Initiative. And I hope you come back and see us again often.
Anytime.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Bless you.
President Bill Clinton. We'll be right back with Chris Rock, everybody. Nice job.
This week, The Late Show is the place to be. On Wednesday, Dave welcomes Senator John McCain. Thursday, Paris Hilton. And on Friday, musical group TV on the Radio performs a song on our fire escape from their new CD, Dear Science. The Late Show. It's gonna be crazy. We'll be right back.
Can we see that again? Look at that. Look at that. There you go. What is my car doing out there, Paul?
So sorry for giving me the keys.
Thank you. Our next guest is a Emmy and a Grammy Award winning comedian starring in a new HBO stand-up comedy special entitled Chris Rock, Kill the Messenger. It premieres September 27th. Here he is, the very funny Chris Rock. Chris, come on out. Good to see you.
Dave, I hope you don't expect me to be that smart.
It's pretty impressive,
I got
isn't it?
nothing.
Yeah.
Whoa! God, I thought I was watching Charlie Rose.
Yeah.
What
Now-
the hell is going on here,
Now
Dave?
I know that you know the former president, and you've been together
I
socially.
did.
Yeah.
I know him.
What kind of stuff?
When I hang out with him, I try to avoid the smart stuff. I try to steer it to sports. If I could just get it to basketball, I can hang. But whoa, that was the economy and the election.
I know.
Boy, is it me or he didn't want to say the name Barack Obama?
Well,
He did not. He went through everything he could do. Well, like Hillary would want to do it to economy. Hillary ain't running.
well,
Hillary's not running. What the hell?
yeah, I understand. I'm leaving this up to
Somebody,
you.
one of those guys need to tell him.
All right. I'll make a call later.
I love Hillary, but you know she lost.
Yeah. Now,
She lost.
he
She
mentioned.
got a lot of votes. She lost. She did. The Patriots got a lot of points too.
Yeah.
But they lost to
I
the
understand.
Giants.
Yeah. I like this. What are we doing here? But now.
She lost. Stop it.
Yeah.
She lost. And she didn't, and it's not sexism the reason she lost. She lost to a black guy nobody heard of.
Well.
She didn't lose to the power. Ooh, the power got her.
You obviously very enthusiastic about the campaign.
I'm very enthused, Dave. I'm out there every day, Dave.
Yeah.
On the front line. In the battleground states.
Getting it done. What?
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, what about Sarah, the governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin? Now, that was sort of a surprise.
That
wasn't it?
is unbelievable. Have you been to Alaska, Dave?
No, I've never been. I've never been to
It's
it.
like the road warrior with snow.
Really? Is it bleak a little?
It's crazy up there, man. It's insane. And she's shooting mooses, and she got the moose holding a dead, bloody moose. And Michael Vick's like, why am I in jail?
Yeah, exactly.
You let a white lady shoot a moose.
Yeah.
Black man want to kill a dog, that's a crime.
We'll be right back here with Chris Rock, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Rock, ladies and gentlemen. Now, This is your, have you done 6 HBO specials? Is that about right?
Something like that, something like that.
And the new one, Kill the Messenger, September 27th, premieres on HBO at 9 p.m.
This Saturday.
Yeah, this was shot all around the world, wasn't
All around the world. New York, Johannesburg, and London. And then we cut it like one special. So like if your eyes are closed, you can't really tell. But
Right.
it's like white people laughing at stuff in London, and black people laughing at the same exact joke in Harlem. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. How long did it take to produce the thing? I know you were on the road quite a lot.
I was on the road for like a year, man. I've been all over the world telling these jokes, Dave, to the people. I've been out there. I know what's going on in the world. I was in London. You realize, here's the thing they're not telling you about the economy. The dollar is worthless. When you leave America and you try to give, like, the guy at the hotel $1, they're like, are you crazy? I was in London, and I went to the currency exchange place, and I gave the lady 3,000 American dollars. I figured it's going to be some happy strippers when I leave London, right? And come on, you gotta get a table dance, right? Anyway, I gave her 3,000 American dollars. She gave me back a loaf of bread. Really?
A loaf of bread?
A loaf of bread.
Well, that's not right. I don't understand economics.
It's
but
horrible, Dad.
That is horrible.
The economy's horrible.
And what did you learn entertaining people all around the planet? What did you learn about people, if anything?
I learned people are the same everywhere, Dave.
Is that right?
Wherever you go, Dave, they are the exact same people. People